That's right. So anyway, Dabston, you were on EGC TV again this weekend. Quite the ordeal to kind of get that up and running. So why don't you kind of take us through how that all went?
Well, I mean, it's still kind of somewhat going on, but I at least can have it all working with a hardwire connection. But it was last Wednesday, so basically a week ago, stream all of a sudden just randomly stopped streaming. OBS would stop pushing the stream to Twitch. I troubleshot for like the next 2 days, all these different things, people in chat jumping on in, trying to help. And then finally decided to go ahead and test the morning of before EGC TV. Woke up at like 6 a.m. And then if it didn't work, my last couple things, I had to move over to my mom's. Well, sure enough, I was over at my mom's. 20 minutes in, power shuts off. So I kind of just like at that point, I was like, all right, like I have no control right now. I can't go home. I can't go to my mom's. Like, do I go to a friend? So I try to set up there. My mom's power came back on, and it ended up working out better in the long run, and was able to stream over there.
Very cool. You and this was Crackety's first time also, right? So
yeah, his first, my second. So, but our first time casting together, we planned on trying to like jump in together for some sort of a cast earlier in the week, and my difficulties did not allow that.
Well, once you got all that sorted out, it went pretty well. So, I hadn't seen Crackety do that, and I thought he did really good. And
yeah,
of course, you're building up a lot of experience too. So
yeah, you might just see the same duo come out this weekend. Not 100% confirmed yet, but I believe just a little bit of a precursor there.
There we go. A little bit of a missed opportunity, though. If you would have had your mom bring you some pizza rolls in between games on stream, that would have been like the ultimate power move.
She made a pizza.
You were going to say get his mum to start casting with him.
She had it up on her phone. I wouldn't allow her to jump on the Wi-Fi because I didn't want any sort of downfall to happen at all.
Was that she was watching you cast?
Yeah, she does like on the EGC TV ones. She will. I'll tell her like every now and then for the 2 times. But then not for my regular streams.
No, that's pretty cool.
Is she subbed to your channel?
She is not. My cousin is though, but my mom is not. I guess she does have Amazon Prime. I might as well go ahead and log in for her and give myself some free money.
Does she can she watch an Age of Empires 4 game and like know what the hell's going on?
Hell no. My uncle probably could. I know he's checked it out because my mom told him about it, but no, my mom is like not that technologically savvy. I'm usually the one to go over and help everything. And so like after I swapped my computer back out, I swapped like 18 different things on her computer because she was like, this, and this is wrong. I don't know how to do this. Steam pops up every time she opens her computer. And I was like, I don't need that to happen for you.
And it's like whenever I go home, I have to take my dad's phone. He'll have hundreds of pictures of the inside of his pocket. So I have to go delete them all.
Oh, that's great.
He's such an old man.
Yeah. So I guess we should give a little intro to Vegie. Tell us a little bit about your background and RTS scenes, how you kind of started the delve into AOE4 and everything.
Came from that massive game that everybody knows and loves, Spellforce. I think I was top 5 out of 20 that played that game. But yeah, played a fair bit of like AOE2 back in the day. Nothing super ultra competitive, but played a decent amount of Age of Empires 2, and then made the switch over to AOE4 when that came out.
So Spellforce, tell us a little bit about that. I actually have seen one small stream of it. Grubby and I think Jordan did a 2v2 tournament on it with controllers, so not anything like the actual PC version would be, but was still pretty interesting to watch. So tell us, how is it different? How is it kind of somewhat similar?
I still love the game. It's a brilliant game. If anybody wants to check it out, it's free to play, so you can just jump in and play online skirmish. At least you got to pay for like the some of the race unlocks and the campaigns and things, but to try it out is completely free. Great, like they call it an RTS RPG hybrid, but it's mostly RTS when you play online. It's just sort of like Warcraft 3, where you get hero units and then your main RTS staples. But yeah, I still love the game. It's just a shame that not more people play it. That's the only thing holding it back at the moment. It's kind of hard to find ladder games, especially outside of European hours, because it's a German-made game, so most of the scene is German.
Yeah, I think when Grubby was playing that tournament, I think I looked up the player count and it was like 37 or something, and I was like, oh, okay, and that was like the max of like the weekly player count that it had seen. So
it's
maybe
not
it was
that
like
bad. There's a lot of different versions of it, so
that
sometimes when you look up the Steam charts, like you might be looking up the versus version instead of the main version.
That's probably what I did.
Yeah, but it's still sometimes you might wait for like half an hour to an hour before you find a game in off-peak times, which is kind of brutal.
Well, lucky enough, we don't have that in AOE4. Sometimes you just have to quit and rejoin after the assigning team screen after it's sat there for a couple minutes. But
I was gonna say it feels like an hour for 4v4 sometimes.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
But let's go ahead and now that we've talked a little bit about some spell force, let's see what we got going on with changes in the tomorrow.
Yeah, so notes came out a few hours ago. So patch is going to come in tomorrow. So interesting changes. It's going to change how the game goes, in feudal age, for sure. So, we'll get into all that. First off, they're kind of fixing some of the hotkey stuff with how shift works. So I've noticed it not working all the time, which has been annoying. So hopefully that makes it a little bit better.
I think the shift that they're talking about here is actually the queuing up 5 units at a time, which I didn't even know was a thing until like a week ago, and someone complained. But they did
your games to do that.
They did mention the shift not unclicking after you've clicked it. I think it's later on in the thing, so it's nothing to worry about now. But I don't know if it's this patch that's coming out. I think they just said, "Hey, we're addressing this."
Yep.
But even still, I didn't. Does anyone actually use that? Do you use that at all? The shift unit production?
I don't.
I use it, but I've never noticed an issue with it. So I'm not sure what exactly the issue they're trying to talk about now. I think it's like if you have your custom hotkeys, like if you rebind Q, for instance, and Q is normally a unit that you would build, and then you try to shift Q to build 5 like spearmen at a time. I think that's what they were talking about. That wasn't working.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Well, I guess they fixed that. I guess they fixed a couple additional of the remappable hotkey layouts and things of that sort. I'm not sure if it's still fully remappable, but they're getting closer and closer.
A lot of things in here, like some things where it's like I guess it's useful to have, but
just kind of
I haven't really thought about.
Just a little bit of quality of life stuff, some stuff that people complain about. Golden Gate keys are properly mapped with market.
I thought that was done already, but I guess not.
Swabia prelates number your town center bindings.
The cancel construction one is handy. You don't have to have it on S.
Oh yeah, that actually is huge. Because I'm sure a lot of people will switch S to stables.
The attack speed arrow is another one too. I mean, I don't play Mongols, but I would imagine that would come in handy if you need to pop it real quick to run away.
Is it only the attack speed one though? Because
that's all it
the
says.
W, right?
Attack speed W.
Like, is the Q and the E fine, but just the W isn't?
I guess, or maybe that there was a bug with the W1 remapping, and they could already remap Q and E. I don't know enough. I'm not a Mongol main, but we'll see about maybe some Mongol changes coming here in a little bit.
Indeed, we will. A couple mod options. I didn't really understand this bullet point, so I'm not going to talk about it.
It seems like something that's very viable for those map creators. So big shout out to those, and I guess this is a decent time to talk about that a little bit. We've had a lot of maps coming out for custom maps. We've had well, 2 actually got submitted in the past couple of days in my map contest. So big shout out to some of those creators, and a lot have been being used in Wololo each week. So really cool to see that, and I'm sure with the continual fixes for the updates that they'll try to keep increasing how the modding tool will work and the limitations there.
Good to see. How many maps total in your contest are you
up to? Right now, I think I'm up to 8 so far, which is pretty solid. And considering there's still longer than a month left, and I only really posted it that first time on Reddit. I keep mentioning I need to repost it, and I keep not doing it, but I will get to that, and hopefully, maybe get the word out to a couple of the other people that have not heard about it yet.
What kind of maps are you looking for? Like, what's your criteria for judging these?
Yeah, so I actually have like a little spot in my Discord that is the actual like I pinned up the top thing, which is like, hey, there's primary 2 categories. The bigger focus is on the 1v1 maps. Long term, you would love to see them, in tournaments in the actual map pool. Obviously, being in tournaments has become a lot more of a reality from when I first posted it, considering Basin's already been jumped in there because Avely submitted that. Unlimited submissions, you can work together and all that, but the categories are 1v1s, generated maps with micro. As far as like judging, top thing is just going to be playability, concept, originality, and then like the map spawn fairness and consistency. And that's, I guess, is like the broad base for 1v1s. And then I mentioned kind of as an additional, there'll be like a little extra one for 2v2s. You can do generated or crafted, because I figured that will be more interesting, that you have additional limitations and you can kind of do whatever with, I guess, the crafted maps. And so could have some interesting 2v2 games featured there.
Very cool. Moving on to the patch notes here. Herbal medicine, pretty big nerf here. So healing rate improvement reduced from 100 to 60%. So Relic trying forever to get us to use monks offensively, and now they take it away. But big nerf to Delhi.
Finally. Yeah. It's only taken them 3 months.
It was really needed, and they kind of hit the nail on the head in their note there, which is talking about, the stacking on elephants, where it was just way too OP, and this will reduce that a little bit, well, quite a bit. So I am not complaining about this change at all. Nothing was more frustrating than seeing 10 scholars and you literally not being able to kill anything.
Yeah, and it's especially because we might see what they called the inspired prelates.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
The battle monk tech.
That is supposedly fixed.
Yeah, so we might start seeing that in tournaments now. So if that was still at 100% healing with prelates and knights, inspired warriors, that's the one.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm kind of glad that we won't be seeing too much of that.
Is because we'll get to the Delhi notes, but elephant health has also been reduced.
Yeah.
Is Delhi going to need a buff to kind of compensate? Because elephants felt like really their only big strength.
No, I disagree. I mean, a lot of times it would come down to the elephants, but there's still a ton of pro games and high elo games that you see people not even make elephants. They just utilize the eco with the sacred sites, the not having to spend gold, and utilize that in their favor. The elephants were just that kind of added bonus, that kind of play style against certain civs and things like that. Yeah,
there's been a lot more like macro Delhi happening at the top level. Really in like the last couple of weeks, I think I've seen a few like 2TC Delhi builds, or before the elephants even started becoming a thing, it was Delhi would go fast castle into knights with like honed blades and stuff. So we might see a bit of a resurgence in that. But Delhi can definitely do other things that isn't just mass elephants and scholars and a move forehead.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I think it was almost kind of how people cornered Mongols into that same build, and we're going to see a lot more kind of different play style and different viability here coming up in the future with tower changes and things like that. And I think that they were viable in other strats other than just tower rush into fast castle. But you know, who knows? Who knows?
One thing that I'd want to see here is what the improved herbal medicine rate is at. Like, what's the bet that they forget about that and leave it at 150% or something?
Yeah, well, we will. Only time will tell. They don't mention the improved herbal medicine, so my bet is you might be right. Next tech is one that I'm super hyped about because it is one that I utilize on Altai with my English build taken from Guz, and we've already heard just a second ago mention Vegie was mentioned and Guz was talking about it already on survival techniques. It has decreased to 75 gold and 25 wood. 25 down on the gold and wood cost, which is super significant, as well as the research time comes in an additional 20 seconds faster.
The research time is big too. There's another Delhi buff because now they can get survival techniques even faster, I'm assuming.
Yep. I'm sure that transitions there, and
it's one that they changed it last time for the season 2 patch to make it super quick. Because I think they want you to get it. I think they want you to be able to get that and professional scouts by the time you're feudal or shortly after.
This is going to be basically free for French.
Yeah. That's the other thing that I was going to say. France, big winner in this. Also, they get the map control to really capitalize on survival techniques too.
I could really see them utilizing, instead of going up with that mill on the berries with their, one vill in the berries and then pull back that vill to like sheep just to get the wheelbarrow when they're aging up. I could totally see that just going over to being a transition onto the deer and getting wheelbarrow as well as survival techniques on the age up.
Maybe. I mean, I do a fair bit of that build, and usually you get survival techniques as you're aging anyway. So then if you put a second town center on the deer, you've got it instantly. But we'll see if it changes anything.
25 seconds seems like just an absurdly quick amount and very, very cheap. So I think this is going to be really interesting to how people utilize this.
All right, next up. So it's kind of probably going to be the most impactful. Maybe, we'll see. Is the changes around rams. So siege engineering, the research time has been cut from 45 to 30, and then the cost of a ram has been reduced by 50 wood, so 300 down to 250. So a little bit less of an investment, and you're going to be able to get them, a little bit quicker. So
yeah, I saw someone already kind of complaining a little bit that this wasn't enough, and I was like, people don't realize the bigger scale of things with 15 seconds for the research time, but more importantly, the 50 wood cost is huge in like the bigger scale of things, just because, that's an extra longbow, or that's, just an extra farm, whatever you can really utilize this as, it makes it way easier just to mass up some extra rams quicker.
Really, I'll be interested to hear what you think, like not just these changes, but like rams and the TC changes, which we'll get into later. Do you think this is an overall buff or a nerf to rams in general, this patch?
I think it's a buff, but I think they threw a bone to kind of the lower level players where rams are already strong, and having the TC automatically change targets. But the lowering of the capacity of TCs is, as someone who doesn't like playing against French, it's just going to make dealing with knights harder because you have less TC spots.
Yeah, and I think you just mentioned lower elos already kind of having rams are quite strong in lower elos from what I've seen. When I've casted the low elo legends and some of those tournaments that they don't have that micro to jumping out of the tower or jump out of the correct side of the town center and not get fired down, or not have their units chase a mile down the road because they're chasing down after the ram. It just is like a much harder thing to deal with for them.
Yeah,
But
and it
they're
does
gonna
it
be able
does
to
make it much easier to burn down rams now. Like jump out some vills and attack the rams because they can't just camp the units on the rams like they used to.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm gonna be curious to see how efficient the tower or the town center is gonna be redirecting to units or redirecting to the ram,
Yeah,
because
that's
I
my question.
believe
I want to see how it works out
because
too.
I believe they decreased the attack speed of it. So I'm wondering, like,
Yes.
okay, it takes a long time to fire already. It seemed like a pretty long time that they're increasing it as well. So you might have that effect to have the town center fire, your ram still jump in or jump back out. I'm sure the pros will have the perfect micro for it.
Right.
But this next one is the only thing that I kind of read, and like I get what they're doing, but I don't like it.
I just don't know why.
And it's not the health regeneration. I'm
Yeah.
fine with that. That's cool.
Nah, so production time for scouts is now 25 seconds opposed to 20. So if you want to go for a second scout opening, you're sacrificing a little bit more villager time.
A vill and a quarter instead of
Yep.
a vill.
So
Yeah.
I don't really understand why this was necessary. Who thought this was necessary? But I mean,
Yeah,
I'm
like
not-
isn't 2 scout a good thing? It's like more micro, more things to do in the early game. It's
well,
like,
yeah, I think
it's
that
a
was
good thing.
that
I think
had to
they're
be it.
trying
Like
to.
where everybody goes to scouts in every situation, so where
I
it's
like
trying to
that
make it a
though.
little bit more of an investment.
But the thing is like when someone loses a scout, it's so much more of an investment to get it back if you're not a civ that already has a stable, such as, Delhi or French or some of these others that typically always build the stables first. Like if you're English per se and losing your scout, like that's crucial. Like that was already a civ that was one scout sometimes. Now, well, having to idle your town center for 25 seconds for a scout is definitely massive now.
I mean, are you ever going to lose your scout with the decreased DPS on the TCs anyway?
You never know. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna lose my scout because
someone will,
I'm
yeah.
bad, and I don't necessarily just lose my scout to TCs. I lose it to everything.
Yeah.
But I think that the health regeneration is gonna have a nice effect to the scout harass we see on the gold, and it's gonna be, those people are gonna have to utilize their APM that much higher, and just kind of taking damage is that much more of a sacrifice, whether they, overstep a little bit or the Vills take out their shivs and get a couple attacks.
Yeah, going fast ball is a little bit more risky too. Without that health regeneration, you can't just tank as much with the scouts. So that one I approve of. I don't understand at all why they would increase the production time.
Yeah, I get, like, obviously it's easy to say, hey, they want your scouts to be more of an investment, but
Yeah,
I think the big thing to talk about with the scout change is going to be Roost, because I think initially when you read it, you're like, oh, this is a nerf to Roost, but then you're like, but not really, because I think most people are going to have their builds ready for everyone but Roost, and against Roost, you're going to need a second scout, and if not, they get the extra, they get the extra bounty. Yes, your second scout comes out at the same time as the other, but you're still going to have a third out of your hunting cabin if you want, and you're forcing your opponent to have that second scout, which they're not going to be able to utilize as much as you will, I feel like.
yeah, it trades even with Ruse, which is like a better way. I think they could have done this is do the production time on hunting cabins and stables, increase that by whatever, and leave the TC one the same. Then your second scout is still the same production time, but if you want to go for 3 or 4 or more, then you get the nerf on that. But I don't understand why they want to nerf second scouts.
Yeah, I think if anything, they should want everyone to build scouts, especially in lower elos, just because vision's such an important thing. You might not realize it when you're, in the lower elo games when you're just learning it, but as you continue to expand the game knowledge, that's really where vision and knowledge is everything.
And then early horsemen, vanguard, men at arms, and spearmen now not going to be quite as expensive to tech up to the next age. And the research is a lot faster too. So
Love this.
yeah, so might get some Dark Age Mongols They can transition into feudal a little bit easier if they want to be aggressive early.
I don't understand
Definitely.
why the Mongol one is free, because it's still one extra upgrade that only Mongols have, which has always annoyed me.
Yeah, I will say at least like people sometimes forget about having to get those upgrades as Mongols until you're playing as the Mongols and you're like, oh, I have to spend them. Well, now it's just going to be that much quicker, that much easier. But I think this really helps Abbasid against the French.
Yeah, Abbasid's a big one.
Their timing for their spearments coming out, it was always like sometimes you could kind of be greedy, sometimes you couldn't, sometimes you could get 2 spearmen out but you wouldn't have them upgraded, or 3 spearmen out but you wouldn't have them upgraded. Well, now you're going to have the spearmen out and have them upgraded and be able to defend up your stone or whatever you really desire. So I really think this helps their timing early on, like in a massive way against French.
It lets you pull off gold a little bit earlier too, and like 40 gold doesn't sound like much, but the amount of Abbasid games that you see where they're stuck on like 10 stone away from their TC, this is going to help them get that extra little bit that they need.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's something you don't really think about until you just mentioned it. It's like, I've seen so many times where, they just need, 12 more stone, or even times where they've been denied off of gold and they just need a little bit more for their spearman upgrade, and they no longer can grab gold because there's already knights there and too many.
Yeah, it really goes to show like how much they're fine tuning the game at the moment. Like back in the early days, there was some big things that were way off, like Mongol with so much extra wood and 70 wood outposts that were just like crazy things that need to be nerfed. But now they're like really getting into that fine tuning where like Abbasid need an extra 5 seconds to defend from the French, so they're just getting them those 5 seconds, which is good to see.
The men-at-arms change will help a little bit as English, because I know sometimes I'll hit Castle Age and I'll be like, oh god, now I gotta get 2 upgrades to get them to the right tech instead of since they're available in Dark Age.
Yeah, you're not wrong there. I sometimes forget about it and I'll get the first upgrade and be like, oh, they're upgraded, and then I'm like, wait, what?
You're thinking whether they're men-at-arms. I've done that too, don't worry.
I make that mistake all too often. But I really do. I do like this change too, because I feel like the earlier transitions, they're just kind of talking about it already. It seems like you want more of a feudal play now, and this helps with that because this says, hey, our early spearmen, all the early units are going to be able to immediately jump up and be a little stronger. You really can have that extra quicker timing.
Yeah, and when they did it to Delhi, it completely changed that Civ. Remember when Delhi was completely unplayable because the spearman upgrade took 4 minutes?
Yep.
Yeah, it's that sort of idea.
Yeah, they changed that upgrade and it literally turned them completely around and fixed a couple other bugs, but still turned them completely around.
All right, so here's the building changes. So defenses will no longer favor rams as a target. So again, I want to see this in action. So if you send in a ram and it's the only thing in TC range, so it's firing at the ram, and then you send your other units in, will it like immediately switch, or like how's that going to work?
So my thought is like when your town center fires, shoots out, let's say you have 15 garrison units, it shoots out all your arrows and then has a cooldown. And then your next arrow shot. So once you're finished up with the cooldown, I think that's when the next arrow shots would come out. I don't know if it would immediately redirect, 7 arrow shots have come out, and then the next 8 go to the final, 8, a couple archers that just came in. I think it's going to be more on the overall attack speed interval that says, hey, my attack started, it's on this specific target, and that's where it's going to hit, and then it'll redirect fire after that, or if units get killed.
Yeah, we'll have to see how that one tracks, because I thought it already did like the closest target. It wasn't prioritizing the ram specifically, it was just the closest target. So we'll have to see if it like completely ignores the ram or if it still goes for whatever's closest, or how it actually works.
Yeah.
Yep.
The big thing here, though, garrison slot.
Garrison slots, yeah. So you can fit 5 less villagers in there, which means, if you want all your villas to be safe, you're going to have to build more towers, which have also been nerfed a little bit, so kind of cascading effects there. But the weapon interval, so I get a little bit confused, with the way they kind of frame their attack speed statistics.
So there's the default weapon, which is just the town center is going to fire with no one in there. And then there's also your garrison weapon, which differs, I guess, for English and different civs. Not really sure how much. Like Chinese, their default weapon is hand cannon, but all your garrison units aren't hand cannon shots. So that's where the difference really comes in.
Right. So they're increasing the interval. So does that mean that cooldown you were talking about earlier, there's more gap in between, your volleys that come out?
That's what I read it as, yes.
So you're reading as it's going from one attack every 1.12 seconds to one attack every 1.18.
That's what I read it as.
Yeah, that's how I read it as well, but it doesn't quite sound right, because I swear TCs shoot slower than one every 1.12 seconds.
Yeah, I really don't know. I mean, it would make sense for them to, if you can have less units in there, it shoots faster. But the way I read it is the attack speed, attack interval, not attack speed, the attack interval has increased from 1.12 to 1.88. That reading it word for word, it makes it sound like it's not getting faster. It's the interval in between the attack speeds.
Yeah, so that's a pretty big nerf to TC damage, because you're also having less villagers garrisoned. And
if it's just attack speed, then that's like a 50% decrease, right?
Yeah.
In TC DPS.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's the little note, this change in combination with the change to prevent defenses from prioritizing rams helps even out the defender advantage a little bit. We want pushes in Feudal Age to be more viable at pushing heavy greed strategies. So I guess they're saying, yes, this is gonna, if we change the defense to always prioritize the units, it's much harder to kill. It's much harder to step in. It's much harder to pressure eco. Well, now the town center is not going to do as much damage in the return to those units, because you won't have as many in there, or it might not be attacking as fast. We don't know yet. And
yeah, it's going to be interesting. Outposts, another big change. So the health has been reduced from 1,000 to 750. Build time has been increased, and then they got hit with the same attack speed change as the town center did. So
again, Power Rush officially dead, cremated, and buried.
So in the same mention of this one, it reinforces my point even more. Do you think that they're gonna buff outposts right now? Attack outposts need to attack faster, so let's make them the interval from, obviously I read it again as attack speed slower, because I doubt that they would buff outposts right now.
Oh yeah, it's definitely slower, but I'm wondering if it's the overall fire rate of the outpost, or is it the interval between arrows?
I think it's the cooldown timing. So it's if you think about notching an arrow, it's okay, I shot my arrow, I got to re-put my arrow in the thing, and that's my interval timing.
Yeah. Oh, the other way to read it would be TC shoots 20 arrows in 1.5 seconds. Now it takes an extra long time to go through that cycle.
Yeah.
So it would be the other way to read it.
I guess, yeah. It could be either way, and who knows? But notice it is only outpost garrison, so it's not like the arrow slits upgrades or anything or sprinkled upgrade, because they have their different timings.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I'm curious to watch this weekend, because at the pro level, it's been really greedy, macro-oriented strategies for quite a while now. And if this kind of makes feudal aggression more viable, or if the players at that level are just still so good at defending that it's still better to be greedy.
Although, do we ever see a tower rush again? An extra 15 seconds. That's pretty big.
That's so long. And I mean, especially with, I feel like they need to revert the change to arrow slits if they want any tower to kind of be that useful in that sort of sense.
I mean, the extra range.
Yeah, the one extra range on arrow slits, I think, could really be the difference, because that would allow you to build the outpost out of range of the resource node or whatever you wanted to deny, and then get the upgrade and deny vills on it. But with the one tile shorter, you had to basically build it in the range of whatever you were building it on.
I think the range is still good because it's still like if you get the first tower up, you can still kind of leapfrog forward a little bit. But I think getting that first tower up now is going to be real hard.
Yeah.
15 seconds, that's like so much closer to their first archer being out.
Yeah,
and then leapfrogging, you're going to take another 15 seconds for your next tower, which means
I feel like
archers are definitely going to be out.
I feel like you're going to have to commit more villagers to even pull it off, which then, of course, means it's almost like an all-in.
Although, do we ever see the pilot elf build come back?
Elaborate that one. I forgot. I mean, I remember pilot elf being Mongol only for quite some time, but I don't know the pilot elf build.
Pilot elf build was fast wheelbarrow, and then pulls 5 vills with horsemen to cover, and then in feudal does the feudal tower rush.
I think it's going to have to be something like that because you're going to need more vills.
Or it could just be the Caspa strat where you like send one vill out and just put him behind the wood line, and you're like, hey, if it works, it works, and if I lose my vill, you had to spend extra APM and extra scouting to do so.
Yeah, but I think the Mongol tower rush is pretty dead.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. I don't think that there is a viability to early denial. I think obviously in elos that don't react to tower rushing or towers at all, that it still will be effective, but it should not be able to easily get towers up in the long term now.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we have a few Civ specific changes. Delhi alluded to this earlier. Tower War Elephant health has been reduced from 860 to 600, but the ranged armor has been increased from 4 to 7.
Yeah, this has a big effect because I think a lot of people, there was a point where like people would mass crossbows just because the high base damage. And with 3 extra range armor, that higher base damage for crossbows is a lot of that's getting nullified. And so like even things like, especially things like archers are going to do negative damage to tower elephants, but horsemen, spears, knights, things like that will be much, much, much better against the war elephants, or tower elephants, especially when you think of the scholars not being as useful now.
Yeah, maybe you'll actually be able to DPS through a scholar and kill the scholars without needing a huge ball of archers to one-shot them.
Yeah, 600 is big to remember because last patch they went from 960 down to 860. So this isn't just like 260 less. This is 360 less.
Yeah. And I was thinking about it in the terms of a royal knight or a royal knight with royal bloodlines, 310 health. You're basically, just double the health of a royal knight. Imagine 2 royal knights or an elephant if you're talking about total health. Like the knights have more health, which is crazy to think about now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of those royal knights, we finally see a little bit of a nerf to French, which I say little, and it's actually a little bit bigger than I think what people will realize, because this little bit of town center production difference affects that 2 town center play in feudal age. It affects their 1 town center play in feudal age, and affects a lot of their strategy.
Yeah. I think they kind of get an indirect benefit from all the defensive changes that outweighs this. So I think it's probably still a net gain, but so their town center production rates are going to be a little slower. So they're not going to pull away on the villager lead quite as fast.
We should say that the old values were 10, 15, 20, 20. So it's 5% less in feudal and castle age is what the change is.
Which, like I said, the main thing I think was to change their play in feudal age, because they were the feudal aggressive civ. They were the civ that could stay in feudal the longest. You could see French feudal at 30 minutes and somehow it's still working. And now that will just have, 5% less of an effect as far as villager count goes, which...
Yeah, I don't think it actually
5%?
changes their feudal much, if at anything.
It's one of those that you don't realize until like the end of the game, where you're like, oh, okay, that would have been 3-4 more vills later on.
Yeah, it's like a 2 TC feudal all in.
Yeah,
5%.
It
might be like a 4 villager difference.
So chat mentions 5% buff for the Abbasid as far as gathering rate went on Golden Age was massive. Well, now this is 5% nerf as far as villager production, which is always going to be a thing considering it's utilized at every point in time in the game for French.
Well, it's like it's what 1 extra vil for every 20 that you make in feudal age. So like you go up to feudal with 15 to 20 vil, somewhere in between there. And then like you're only missing 1 or 2 by the time you get to like 40 or 50 vils, which is usual feudal age.
But French plays feudal longer, so even still 1 or 2, like it has that effect.
It's definitely a little bit, but I don't think it does much to their feudal age. What it does change is their castle age, like that 2 TC boom into the big royal bloodlines maxed out push. I think it like slowly is that's the sort of area that it really starts to hit.
Yeah. HRE. So emergency repairs cooldown has been increased from 60 to 75. So a little bit of a nerf
needed.
There. Yeah, I agree. I do.
Definitely needed.
It was a problem, especially when they're talking about rams. The fact that 1 ram could get out healed by emergency repair is just absurd. Or even 2 rams, I would see get out healed on bigger landmarks and things like that. So it's just like that. I really feel like that shouldn't be something that can deny 600 resources worth of something that quick. And with the keep change, I think is the biggest reasoning for this as well. The stone cost for keep repairs.
Yeah, that's the funny thing. The change that I'd love to see with HRE emergency repairs is make it cost something. Like, it doesn't have to be much, but just like 50 resources or something every time you click it, so you can't just completely pull off wood or stone and then still keep repairing your keeps and things. I think that would be a probably better way to balance it. But the extra cooldown is definitely good.
I think the aura should have to be connected to your main TC and get rid of the blueprint exploit. I think it's stupid that you can build a town.
I think the blueprint exploit's fine.
The blueprint's dumb. I like the extra TC ones. Like, I don't mind it being on external TCs as well. But the ghost houses is pretty dumb.
Yeah, in my opinion, the biggest thing in general was just the amount of you mentioned it, the amount of stone you save on repairing. Like, I feel like if you repair stone, it should cost, like if you repair a keep, it should cost a little stone. If you repair a wood building, it should cost a little wood, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
It would make a lot more
with the
sense.
change in keeps that they did last patch or the patch before. It's really strong on keeps at the moment.
Mm-hmm. And then supposedly they have fixed the prelates over inspiring both Vils and the inspired warriors with the A move. So I did see in the EGC chat that Petito was saying if it is fixed, and I'm sure they're going to test and look at this closely, then they would, if it is fixed, they would allow inspired warriors in Red Bull. So maybe we'll finally actually get to see someone use it.
I really hope we don't, because that ability is so dumb.
Yeah, I mean, it's cool when you think about it, but not when you play it or play against it, I should say.
It's fun to play with.
Feel like the maths on it is just ridiculous. Like, you get prelates that are doing like 100 DPS or something for 100 gold unit. It's absurd.
Yeah, and don't they? It inspires and gives them armor and other bonuses as well.
Yep.
And they can heal at the same time. So
too many uses. Pick up relics.
Yeah. Like if it was flat damage like the warrior monk roost buff, it would be a lot more balanced. But giving knights like 8 to 10 damage, I think it is, depending on the upgrades, is huge.
It's funny how short this Mongols changes and how massive this Mongols changes, because I really do think, combining with a couple of the other things we just talked about, I really do think this allows Mongols to be super, super kind of diverse with their opening and what they can do with the game, starting with a Gur.
Yeah, they definitely needed something now that we're taking Tower Rush away. So that's be interesting. I'm just curious to see what sort of builds and timings people come up with.
In my opinion, I feel like they can be a lot more eco-based, whether it be getting early techs or whether it be going for, earlier Castle Age, considering they were one of the ones with delayed feudals already. Now this is going to quicken up that feudal age. You might not see the movement of your TC all the way to that prime time wood line because you don't need the wood for your Gur anymore. You might see the TC moved directly onto food or, double resources, whatever those two resources may be.
Or the big thing that I think is just don't move the TC. Just put it exactly where it starts. Like you
save yourself a vill.
Yeah, you save your 15 seconds moving. That's 3/4 of a villager that you've suddenly got from the start of the game. I mean, that's probably more worthwhile than having to gather 100 wood for your second Gur.
Yeah, and kind of one of the things I think this allows with the survival techniques change, we just talked about Pilot doing early wheelbarrow. Now you have the Gur immediately. You don't have to drop the Gur and then get your upgrade. This is a much quicker upgrade timing. And on maps that start with deer, such as Altai or Hill and Dale, Mongols could start deer with the Gur, go survival techniques right off the bat, put TC wherever else, let's just say on gold, and immediately get that quick age up timing.
They could even do something like the English 222 build, where you get 2 on wood, 2 on gold, and then get a fast wheelbarrow. Except instead of then building 4 farms, you build a pasture instead. So it's basically the exact same build as the English, except with the pasture.
Yeah, there's a lot of kind of cool things that we could see. I remember seeing a while back, seeing Marine Lord do a 2TC wheelbarrow build, and it's like, we normally see the second TC for the Mongols come out after the steppe redoubt. They just trade in the gold efficiently, buy wood, and already are on pretty heavy on wood typically to, get production down and get those extra towers down.
Yeah, and just I really wish they'd do something with the cost on the Mongol TC, because 900 wood is a lot. And I think I mean, I don't want to get too much into their heads, but I think the idea was that Mongols were meant to be the trader Civ instead of the TC booming Civ. But with trade as weak as it is now, you can't really do that.
Trade is such a funny thing to talk about, because in low elos people love it, in high elos people hate it, and in team games people love it, which is kind of like that middle ground. And so it's really fun seeing it in team games because it really does pay off, but in 1v1s it really doesn't. I can't tell you how many times I've seen like a trader and it's like 27 and I'm like, oh. So it's also hard to end up having the longer distance. Obviously is the better the payoff, but it's also the riskier cost. If it gets found out, all your trade gets shut down. Well, there goes all your eco you invested in.
They got to rethink trade, because the synergy is just so bad, because all the landmarks are in feudal, and it's just so difficult to get anything established that early in the game and defend it.
Yeah, I feel like it's even still though, it's like you want to establish it earlier because later it's already going to be established. And I feel like it's like, why invest in trade when you can invest in finishing the game if you're already ahead, rather than starting a little bit of trade. I guess you could kind of trickle invest into it, but I feel like that doesn't make as much sense again. It's just a hard thing to balance in general, because if they all of a sudden make the, payoff timing a little bit better, well, team games all of a sudden is thrown out of whack, or bigger maps and all that. I'm not a dev. I don't know how to balance things.
That's true. I see some people talking about like with this Mongol change, we're going to see 630 castle times with Mongols, but I don't think that's quite true, because the same thing as the trade. Like if Mongol goes 630 naked fast castle, they just die. They can only fit 15 into their TC now. They're just dead.
Yeah, and if you don't have, and if the Uvu is not next to the TC, then the Uvu goes down. There's no double production. Where the production building is going to be, they can't have that all next to the Uvu, or else there's no pastures, no food, so on and so forth. Like there's no, like I feel like, especially with the feudal changes, there's not going to be any of this like I'm just naked feudal aging or naked castling and gonna be fine with some other civs, because I've seen it even with other civs.
Yeah, it's going to be even harder to do the tower pressure into castle behind too with Mongols. I think we might finally see them making some actual cavalry in feudal age.
Bring back feudal Megadai raids. I want to see it. I don't want to play against it, but I want to see it.
Talk about OP in team games. The amount of damage I've seen Megadai do in team games, you don't want to talk about.
All right. A couple map changes. I didn't really... You guys see anything big in here?
Just a little bit of balance fixes and some kind of smaller things. I don't think it's anything too big as far as the Altai change or the Ancient Spires change.
Mm-hmm.
Couple bug fixes, nothing too crazy to talk about there.
I do like the Altai ones, though, I have to say. Putting the gold in the consistent spot behind the TC.
Opposite side. And there's the one that's the opposite side on the wall of the sacred site. So if you have the sacred site, there's going to be a big node on the opposite side of it.
Yeah. So you always have a back corner that you can retreat into for your gold. It's not just in the center where you can get completely pushed off.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's good. Yeah, so they also talked about, where was it? What's on the horizon? So doing a little bit more work with shift interfering with grid keys. And then
the next part is what we were talking about, as well as shift queuing not resetting after releasing shift. I have realized this is something that affects me quite a bit. I didn't realize until I watched a video. I think it was the Muslim made a video about this, and it makes a lot of sense when you actually slow it down and you realize like, oh wow, I haven't even realized that that's the interaction that's been happening. So I have found myself seeing this more and more often and spotting out faults of my own.
So what is happening there?
It's like, it's weird when you watch the Muslim's video. It's like he explains it a lot better, but essentially like there's times when you release shift and then your shift queue, like it doesn't act like you've released shift. So then your next ability should override and it doesn't. And then sometimes your ability shouldn't override and it overrides everything you just shift clicked. So it's like sometimes it does that and sometimes it's the vice versa.
It's usually the one where you go to build your landmark and then you shift back to gathering sheep or something, and they'll just ignore the first command because it didn't remember that you hit shift.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so there's that big one, exactly what he said. I've seen that happen against the Muslim and as the Muslim, where he tried to build, let's just say a golden gate, he shift queued back to sheep, and all of a sudden he looks back and all his vills are on sheep, and the golden gate framework's there, but there's no vills there. Mm-hmm. And then same thing, I've seen it where you shift queue like 3 houses, and all of a sudden the first 2 houses didn't get built. The third one overrode the first 2, and the third one gets built, and then your vills go idle and don't even listen to the last shift click.
I have noticed where I'll kind of go to my wood line and there's just like a lumber camp blueprint that's been there for 10 minutes.
Yeah. And that's really, if you watch the replays or you watch like if you're streaming and you watch the VOD and you see it and you're like, I see where I click that and I see where it didn't end up building, and you're like, oh, that's where it is.
Yeah, the biggest issue I'm having is I have my barracks, archery range, uh, stables, and siege workshops to shift A, S, D, and F. And so now I have to actually deselect whatever my unit is to get to it, which I feel like that wasn't the case before. So
Yeah, that
I
is
don't know
bad.
what's going on there.
Yeah, I don't.
You don't do like Control A or S or D or F? Wouldn't that be easier?
I might have to. I'm gonna mess around with that after this to see if that does the same thing.
What about what about Alt? Is Alt anything?
Alt has some weird things because it's like tied to the camera a lot, so sometimes you can rotate it and things.
Oh yeah, Alt is I think camera rotation.
Yeah.
Anyway, in the future, what I kind of want to talk about was they're going to rework water. So I can't remember where they said this, but they're looking at actually giving us the full rock paper scissors ship options in feudal, which is
you're right on it. Here's what we have planned for naval balance.
there it is.
Enhanced tactical RPS gameplay. Starting in Feudal Age, you will have access to 3 ships, which have bonuses against each other, making for exciting tactical engagements, earlier engagements, so ships are going to be more affordable as well, so expect bigger battles on the sea that start earlier on, which also makes me think that it's going to be way less of a, hey, I have 15 fishing ships and now I got my 1 attack ship out and it's better than yours and I win. I feel like it's going to be like 3 fishing ships and then like we need attack ships now because they're coming out. So I you might see that a little more. I'm not really sure how big the change is as far as affordability and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, faster movement speed and responsive on the turnings. The next one, new cost stats, rebalancing there. And then I guess more, better distribution of fish and wood, especially on naval maps, obviously, where wood is going to become into a lot more of a question where if you run out of wood, you lose. We saw, what was it? Someone got tower rushed by was it Wham got tower rushed by the Muslim as English, and he got no wood and no more water, no more anything.
I think it just sounds like they're doing the AOE2 approach, which is probably good. Like AOE2 for the longest time had the most stale, boring water meta because you could only build galleys in Feudal Age. So you just went the best galley civs, which was Vikings, and then you could never beat that. But sounds like they're moving all 3 types of ships into Feudal Age. So you will have your current galleys, which are your attack ships, which will be like the fire ships from AOE2, and then you'll have your hulks and your attack ships, which will be like AOE2's version of the galleys. And then you'll have the demo ships, which hopefully they actually make viable, and so you can actually build them again.
Hey, we saw a couple of them this past weekend, I believe, in Wololo. So,
there were some in Low Elo Legends, actually.
Oh, look at that. We're getting 2 huge commitments to those explosive ships, which we all used to love and see back when you could activate them like 8 times and the range was like a mile wide.
Yeah. Remember when you could take down a keep with 2? That was good times.
The funniest was like you would have 1 and you would not only wipe all the fishing, you would also wipe like their docks that were there too. And you're like, oh, there you go, I win.
Yeah, man, that brings me back to the old Winter Stays On when they at Boulder Bay with the ridiculous demo ships killing everything on land.
God, I remember there was one. It was back when Roos was super OP, and it was like a Roos versus Roos war, and one person ended up getting the explosive ones first and just wiped everything with the couple explosive ones since the Roos ships were so hard to tell the difference of.
The one that I remember was a GUA game on the old Confluence where you could like get between them, and it swung like 4 times. They both lost their entire armies with like 5 or 6 bombard cannons, like 4 or 5 times to a single demo ship.
God. Oh.
But anyway, I'm pretty excited for this because right now you hit feudal and it's like, yep, your feudal ship counters mine. I'm fucked.
Yeah. I don't know what Dev thought giving the French hulks in Feudal Age was a good idea, but like I don't want to be mean, but they should not have their job in the balance department. Just give them one Civ, the ship that counters literally every other ship.
Yeah, and
4
it
minutes
was.
before
I
anyone else
also
can
think
do
the
it.
hardest part was the biggest problem was even if you got enough of the opposite side ship, let's say to even kill out the first couple Hulks, and you were on top of their dock, you couldn't like kill out down the dock in time before more would come out and wipe your whole fleet.
It's just like it's so baffling too, because France has a unique ship. They have the Galleass. Like, just give them galleys in Feudal Age and then Galleass in Castle Age, and cut out the Hulk, or make the Galleass their Feudal Age ship with arrows, and then move the Hulk to Castle. Like, they could have done it either way, but instead they chose the worst way.
Yeah, but we'll see a big change coming up in the future. And again, like I already have found kind of a new, like I definitely hate water, but I found like a new redemption for it a little bit in the past couple of weeks. Holy Island definitely had a change there. And it's pretty fun to see sometimes, just seeing the smaller intricacies of it and kind of seeing like the small effects where you can win it, where it's like you have to really think about balancing land and sea. And so it's really going to be cool to see if this balance actually makes water maps way more viable and people like to play them. And then we see them in tournaments a lot more. And all of a sudden the map pool goes from to this, like, and all it's just massive.
Yeah, we'll have to see what type of water maps they mean too. Like, do they mean more maps like Boulder Bay or Holy Island, or do they mean proper island maps like Warring
Archipelago?
Island? Not that one.
Oh no! I heard that's going to be the main map for Wololo coming in the monthly. Not even the weekly, just the monthly. It's just crucial, most crucial point.
Yeah, game 1 will always be played on Archipelago.
They did that the first month, the month final for the
no Civ bans either.
Remember the already qualified people? They made them play on Warring Islands for $1,000 or whatever.
Yeah, it was 3 of them, I think.
Yep, I'm a little curious. If you're getting access to all the the 3 types of ships in Feudal, that they're all coming from the same building, so you can't really scouting is not really going to help you. So I feel like you're going to have to spam docks to my opponent's going this ship, I need to produce more of this ship than he can.
Well, yeah, I think it's also kind of the same effect when it's not like all of a sudden, I have 3 of one ship and one ship comes out and all of a sudden it kills everything. I think it's going to be similar to where, the archers to spearmen to horsemen, where one's going to have more mobility, one's going to have more damage, one's going to have the explosion, blah, blah, blah. And you're going to be able to kind of see a more balanced overall army rather than all Hulks or all Dals, whatever it may be. You're going to see more of a balance and be able to kind of counteract where, my opponent's massed up all attack ships, I can mass up, explosive or whatever the effective counter is.
Yeah, I think it'll probably follow the AOE2 meta pretty closely, where there you just basically you start with fire ships because they're good against small numbers of ships anyway. You don't ever start demo ships because one demo ship is the most useless and sad thing in the world. You need to have a mass of them before actually they do anything. So you'll take the Hulk in this game or whatever the equivalent of first. You'll make that first, and then if you see them go heavy into demo ships to counter your Hulks, then you'll swap into galleys. Otherwise you'll just mostly stay Hulks.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see once we see the changes.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, I guess that was the majority of everything we were expecting here.
Yeah, so that's the patch. It hits tomorrow.
Do we know what time, or can we assume
it's typically noon my time? So it would be 15 hours from now.
3 a.m. this time. Good times.
There you go. Yeah, and if it's not noon, it's typically like it would be anywhere from 3 a.m. to your 7 a.m. then.
Yep. All right. Well, we did our first August weekly, which of course, Dabston cast it on Saturday. Got the Marine Lord BCQD final, as a lot of people would have expected. Pretty good series. The tower, the villager rush game was pretty funny. It just goes to show how good these players are at defending. Because I mean, where Marine Lord's gold spawned, like I thought for sure he was gonna lose, but nope, it just perfectly responded to it, able to take the lead.
Yeah, I mean, I think we saw a lot of interesting things, and not only that series, but also the overall series. We saw English being pulled out on water maps more with the small changes that they had. We saw Holy Island just now coming into play this weekend, which had a lot of interesting games, a lot of different civs. People, thought Roos was going to be good and not as effective, it seemed like. But Beastie had a cool go burn the dock play early on. And just a couple different things that you don't always you wouldn't always expect when you're just playing the typical, hey, I'm playing ladder games on this map.
Mm-hmm. And we did get the BC Caspa series that that everybody wanted.
The grudge match.
The grudge match, but BC takes it 2-0.
Yeah, all the drama was there, and everyone was ready for that hype series, and it just it didn't quite come to the exact fruition that everyone wanted. I would have loved to see it go to game 3 and just be a battle, but Beastie shows why he is.
Maybe that's what happens when Casper can't lane.
Oh, who knows?
Or delete fish. Yeah,
exactly. He's stuck to the rules. Turns out Beastie.
Yeah. And then compared to like the other monthly where we saw like in the first rounds a lot of 3-0, 3-0s, like all the early games were 3-0s. And this one, we noticed a lot of the series are a lot closer, where I feel like people have learned certain matchups they prefer, certain maps they prefer. And even that they've learned how to draft a little bit better as well to know what to expect from opponents.
It's a different group of people too. Like Beastie and Marine Lord 3-2, they're a lot closer, evenly matched than maybe some of the people like between top 8, like Wham and the Muslim in the monthly final compared to the top 16. So,
yeah, we see a bunch of games taken off of either option over there.
Mm-hmm. I was reading the EGC chat today, and Petito said they were thinking about doing only land maps this week. So I hope that's not the case, because I liked Holy Island quite a bit.
They actually have announced the map for this week.
Oh, I missed this.
It's H. It's the H map. What's it called?
Let me look. It's wood map. Woodwall.
Yeah. It's the one that makes an H. That's all I know.
So imagine if you're my best way to explain it, imagine like a what is it? French pass, but instead in the middle of the two French passes is just a thick forest in between, and you spawn on either side of that forest.
It's like Hideout from AOE2, except without the palisades.
It's gonna be a lot of interesting games. I've already heard strats such as chop through the whole entire middle of the forest.
I want to see a single Kremlin, just one Kremlin, and I'll be happy.
I think you're just a little upset because you got Kremlin rushed earlier.
Oh, that Kremlin was the most useless Kremlin ever. They put that Kremlin on my arc and I was dead, but they put it in the middle of the map.
Yeah.
On this one, if you chop through in Dark Age and then put your Kremlin on their side of the wood wall, so you can get the wood gather bonus and deny them.
I would love to see it, but I feel like there's only a few players that might have the balls to pull the crazy plays like that. I know Salami immediately comes to mind as one of those people that loves to chop through some forest and do some odd things.
I've seen Castro play Kremlin a couple of times.
Well, that's going to be a fun one. I've seen some complaints on it, but I feel like with all these custom maps, there's always going to be these complaints. But at the same time, like the reason they're using these isn't for like, hey, I mean, obviously this is a lot of money on the line. This is a big tournament. It's also for testing out maps, giving the opportunity for these map creators, and just kind of for the enjoyment of the game. It would get stale seeing Dry Arabia every single day, all day. Like maybe not. I like to see it, and there's some interesting games, but it would always be the same. Like there wouldn't really be this crazy change up like we just saw with Holy Island.
Yeah, I think the best comment on this map that I saw was from Hut, which basically sums up nearly every pro player's opinions. He said, "Looks like a really interesting map. I hate it."
Yeah, and exactly. I mean, interesting is right. It will be interesting, but
yep.
Will it, like, compared to the long-term viability of some of the maps that we've seen, like, I definitely would think that like 3 options would easily come into play. Like, I don't see this one being a long-term play, but I do think this one will be a fun play.
Yep. Yeah. So that's about everything I had wanted to discuss. So either of you guys have anything you want to plug before we get out of here?
No, it's a weird week. We don't have War Chief, we don't have low elo legends, so it's only Wololo this week that we have to look forward to. But like I said, I should be on again.
Yep, we were hoping Dabston could save low elo legends, but unfortunately, he's taking the big bucks and going to EGC instead.
Well, shoot,
yeah,
Baka's off playing Age of Empires 2. I don't know what's going on there, but
I think he's already given that up.
Yeah, he was back. I don't think that will be a long lasted event.
Yep. But no, thanks for having me on the podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. Our first non-North American.
Yeah, exactly. It was. I saw the opportunity. You were up early, and it's usually hard to get anyone else that is not in the North American time zone at this time.
Yeah, it is the middle of work time, but oh well.
Yeah, well, appreciate you coming on, and appreciate everyone who's checking this out. We'll leave. I guess do you stream anymore now? I know we used to a little bit. We can leave your Twitch handle below.
Oh, who, me?
Yeah, you.
Oh yeah, I stream every now and then, not too often. I kind of want to get affiliate this month, so I should probably stream a little bit, but not too often.
There we go. Well, we'll leave your Twitch handle down below. Definitely everyone go through Vegie, Black Vegie, a follow on Twitch and help him get that affiliate real quick.
Absolutely. So yeah, it's gonna wrap us up for this week. So thanks everybody for watching, and we'll see y'all next week.